Welcome to this week's Bhandwagon Podcast. Before you watch or listen to this week's episode, I need you to do me a favor. If you liked any of the content that I've produced over the years and you still don't follow or subscribe to the channel, please do so. Your help is immeasurable for me getting bigger guests and hopefully getting those great interviews ready for you. So please, thank you. Welcome to another edition of the Bhandwagon Podcast, and today is a live episode, live production, and hopefully in its new home here, sponsored by and powered by Mahir's Experience. A big thank you to everybody who's been involved in the podcast and pushing it to this point. I'll still be doing the regular guests online and mixing it with some of the past guests and new guests, more in person and making it more personal. I think it's the best way for us to get kind of long-winded conversations and get the true thoughts and feelings of some of those guests and answer some of those questions that I personally have always longed for. So today I'm joined by a human rights activist, a writer, a broadcaster, and genuinely a good guy. He's been in the press. He's been one of the pioneers of bringing online content. And he's got so many different stories, and there's so many different angles we can take this interview. Without further ado, welcome to Sarb Singh.
Thank you, man. Thank you, brother.
Sarb, kidda?
Wicked.
Sarb, you are one of the original sort of content creators. I said that in the intro. And I remember seeing your stuff from early on 2012 on YouTube. What's the best way you would describe yourself?
In the context of prachar or just as
anything, because like I said, there's many different layers to when we've had this chat. But there's how do you best describe yourself?
I think the best way to describe myself is as a speaker, man. Whether it's in a room, or it's in front of 20,000 people in Trafalgar Square, or it's in a university, or it's a talk, or it's TV. I feel like I'm a speaker, and I feel like sometimes I feel like mera kam mein ye hua, like I was put on this earth to say those things that people are either A, don't fully understand, or B, are too scared to say it. And I feel like for the past 15 to 20 years, I've kind of been doing that. Like if there's one thing that people used to say to me, the common denominator, anywhere I went, they went, "Tu saadi awaaz hai." Like we knew there was something happening. We knew that there was injustices. We knew that we were on the back end of so much bad stuff that had happened, but we didn't know A, how to vocalize it, or B, why it happened. So I just feel like I'm a mouthpiece for a lot of people out there, and that's probably that best describes me. And it's straight talking as well. When straight talking meets a forensic approach, then you get a really potent thing.
I always liked how, especially when you were putting an argument forward, how you articulated it the best. With the evidence, your opinion, and then you still left that little bit of flexibility for somebody who's listened to the argument to kind of make up their own decision as well, really. And I think that's pretty rare that you get with people who do interviews or people who try and put their point across. Where did that come from? Because either it's a God-given talent, or sometimes you've worked your way through, like whether you're a trainer or you're a solicitor or you're just used to public speaking. Where did that confidence come from?
That's a good question, to be honest. I think it comes from my background. I'm a historian, so my degree was in history. And history is always about, there's one side to a story, then there's always going to be another one, then there's something in the middle. So anytime I used to present something, especially in terms of like the World War I or Second World War, whatever, I used to be like, this is that side, but this is what I believe. But even what I believe is not the absolute truth. So I personally get really knocked, and it really grinds my gears when I listen to people presenting anything. It could be in any context. It could be a well-being coach. It could be a nutritionist. It could be a Sikhi pracharak. It could be anyone. When they say that this is the way, this is the way, this is what I do, and this is what works, I would like people to say, this is what I believe. Like everything is pointing towards this. This is what works for me. But you're free to look elsewhere. You're free to do your own research. And I've always listened to people a bit more when they say, do your own research. So even when I was researching, say, the 84 thing and the whole, the Ghana that happened, the decades of oppression, I still tried to look at it from an angle of somebody else and go, right, how would somebody counter my argument? And I think this is when, I think it was The Hindu that wrote an article about me, was that he's taken a really, it was mental that they actually said, what's worrying, he's taking a forensic approach to this, and even rational Sikhs are following his logic. So for the first time for them, it wasn't about somebody maybe waving a kirpan in the air and saying, Indra Kuti, Maro Jutti. They'd take that all day long. That's where they want to keep us. When you've got some young guy, and they use the word suave in there as well, and they were like, even the cyber wing is struggling to counter what this man's saying. We haven't had enough of that in our generation, because I think for too long, the government peddled this idea that, yes, asi thonu kuttiya, yes, thonu baddiya, but you picked up guns. And then it was this generational trauma about it. If you talk about it, "Karon thonu chak lana pa." And then we've carried that on into the UK. So people are just scared to talk about it. There was this, it's just a demon, it's a bogeyman thing. You don't talk about 84. But then I just thought, actually, you know what? There's a story that needs to be told. And had our parents not decided to move to this country in the 80s, whenever they came, man, we could have been one of those forced disappearances or those extrajudicial killings. And I just thought, it's up to us then. Like, KP Gill's not going to knock on our door in the middle of the night. So it's up to us to make that voice buland. But don't just make it buland, make it to the point where it's a bit bulletproof. And people like yourself can relate to it. A builder down the road can relate to it. A pharmacist can relate to it. And that's pretty much what happened in those 15, 20 years, man.
So when you look at history and the way you studied it, is there a particular part of history that always takes your attention? Because like for me at the moment, I'm more into I'm listening to a lot of podcasts, and it's all conspiracy theories around the pyramids and the Egyptians and aliens and all this. Is there a bit where is your kind of, that's my area that I love to kind of concentrate on?
I think I've always been into like guerrilla movements, like resistance against like oppressive regimes. So, it could be Che Guevara. And then I think that's what led me into the 84 side of it, because I think there's a part of me that's always supported the underdog, if you want to boil it down into a really minimalist way. So I think I've always been, there's something, I don't know, something really romantic about guerrilla movements and people going against all odds and for what, an ideal. And somebody said this amazing thing to me once, and they said, back in the day, like SEC used to put their lives on the line to save the Sorge, and now we're putting our Sorge on the line to save the lives. And I think even that part of history is like, how can one Qom, you could say, face such a devolution from being a very regal, you could say like a royal commanding Qom, to like almost refugee status today, where we are today. And to see that devolution and to be able to recognize it as well, that actually upper hair and upper hair is, for me, that's another part of history that fascinates me. Like, how do Qom change?
Do you think it's going past the stage where we, and you see whenever you pick up the news or when you've, papers, or when you're watching TV, the amount of war that's around everywhere. There's war happening in people's health. There's war happening physically. There's mental warfare that's going on and trauma around the world. Do you think we're reaching a tipping point? Because and half of me is thinking, this is the best time ever to be alive. We've got the best Medicare ever. Affluent areas, as a community, they're doing really well. And then you're seeing all the other stories everywhere else. What do you think we're at a tipping point in kind of world harmony?
Yeah, I think, I think I saw something where somebody said we are the luckiest generation of all the hundreds of billions that since the inception of the human race. We are the luckiest generation, because the access to information, like the access to medicine, the entertainment, the quality of life, the quality of food, the abundance of everything. But at the same time, we are probably the most chronically unhappiest generation as well.
Why do you think that is?
I just think it's, I'm going to sound like a bit of a Buddha really, but I think, when you say, are we at a tipping point? I think if you went back 100 years, people who were on the verge of, I don't know, seeing the First World War, the Great War, they'd go, oh, do you think we're at a tipping point? There's war everywhere. I think if you'd gone 100 years before that, there would have been people going, oh my God, look how, we've invented this electricity, and do you think that's going to destroy the way we live our lives? And, I think every generation will feel that it's at its tipping point. But I think the reason why we are unhappy is just, I think, like, even if we're a victim of our own success, even stuff like this, which is great, it's amazing, like it's going to get to people will watch it. But then at the same time, relationships aren't being formed. There's something technical like TikTok brain, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, the AI is really...
You've got AI.
But that's why I think it's different for me. Because I think when we created, let's say we as a human race created like electricity and all these things, right? Electricity wasn't giving you an answer to a problem in some ways, you know what I mean? When you create AI and you're looking, we're only like 2 years in, 18 months, right? And you look at the amount of progression that AI is taken, it's absolute madness.
Yeah, it's frightening, man.
And when you watch, like, I'm a big fan of Terminator. If you watch, and it's like kind of like preordained, exactly, this is what's going. And I don't think there's anybody gutsy enough to actually say, let's pull the plug before this gets a bit crazy, because I think it's in human nature. It is a Terminator line, isn't it? That it's in our nature to destroy ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And you even little things that I've got kids, and I'm a creative writer myself, and I remember winning awards as a kid for my creative writing, and you think that's going to disappear because AI is going to be doing everyone's creative writing, and that creativity is going to go, and people don't look for the answer, people don't read, and to find an argument, it's just straight away, tell me such and such. How can I write this? Give me a post for LinkedIn about Monday mornings.
Yeah.
So someone's not thinking anymore, it's just someone else is doing the thinking for you. So I think, and then you've got, people, rather than cultivate human relationships, man, everything is online. So even just little things like going to the shop, like when we used to go to the shop, like you'd go, your eyes are looking at things that you might strike a conversation with someone. Everyone's shopping online, everyone's playing games online. But we used to play football until we couldn't see the football anymore because it's so dark. Do you know what I mean? All that element is just being sapped away. And then you've got this whole safeguarding thing, and I think levels of crime, sophisticated crime, online grooming, street grooming, everything. And you think your kids aren't safe, so you keep them indoors. Yeah. And I think that this is all going to have a huge effect. And even this TikTok brain, where people want to be entertained within 3 seconds, and they go, well, there's people who go, I don't even watch TikTok, but they're doing the same on YouTube Shorts. 3 seconds, that's crap. 3 seconds, okay. That then is transferred to different spheres of people's lives. So if someone's not entertaining you straight away, it's like, let's move on, man. You know what I mean? And it's just, you think that at what point is that going to end? Yeah. I remember when we was in school, if you were going to get bullied, you got bullied between 9 and 4.
Yeah.
Your safe places are when you got home at 4:30. Yeah. Now,
no, but you still used to panic and not go to sleep.
Yeah.
Know that you're going to get it in the morning.
In the morning, but
I'm okay.
Yeah, but now on ping, someone could be sat in their dad's laps and ping, vibrate.
Yeah.
Your pictures on this social media, you're being cropped here, and I don't want to sound like it's all doom and gloom, because I think every generation feels like,
But I think it's important because you were one of the, like yourself and Jugraj Singh from Basics of Sikhi were one of the first ones to kind of digitalize Sikhi in some ways, or bring it onto a Sikhi on a platform, on a digital platform. Like, do you ever look at that content and see, is it still relevant on today's platforms? Because what you tend to find now is the way that people clickbait, they cut little bits out and make up a false story. Even when you're putting out little reels just to get people's attentions to kind of to grasp their attention. Do you think it was kind of future proof?
I don't know if it would.
Like, do you regret some of the stuff one day?
Absolutely not. If anything, it gives me a good night's sleep knowing that stuff was done, and it's a catalogue there for the next generation. And we were just talking even before we started that, you know, when it comes to Jarasi especially, even Sikh history in general, like books aren't being written really. No one's reading. So for me, that was a library that I'm going to leave. मैं चले जाऊंगा तो people will be able to see, but at least in our काम तक कीता सीगा, and he did take apart history. He did expose the people that ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕਾਤਿਲ ਸੀ, and he did laud the heroes that were hidden from the books of history. But I don't know if that format would work today, because like you said, it's all about YouTube Shorts and TikTok. Attention span. So my videos were like 50 minutes, 45 minutes, non-stop without a single take, whether that was in front of a camera or it was just a camera filming me at an event. So it'd be 50 minutes non-stop. But when I look back at some of the statistics, like people would watch from start to finish. And yeah,
because those platforms weren't necessarily there at that time.
They weren't there, so it was a novel thing, Randy, like you said. So me and Jagraj, I think we were pretty much the pioneers of online prachar. So at that point, people were like, wow, you got to watch this. And it grew organically. So, you know, today you've got people paying masses for like Google ads, YouTube ads. And Google and YouTube, really, I don't think they're going to let you climb unless you are going to be paying some money. But this as grew exponentially, but organically. I don't know about Jagraj, and I don't think he did, but I didn't pay for I didn't monetize anything I did. If anything, it went up and down the country for free. But I didn't spend anything to get us somewhere. Any posts on social media, people will be sharing them like mad. And that was without any Google ads and stuff like that. So I think because it was such a novel thing, it grew. Whether it would work now, but you've got other channels as well that are, you know, huge, even just Sikhi-based ones and podcast ones, and even yours is growing really well. So I don't think what I did would have worked then, but I think people will appreciate in generations to come if it's still there.
So like you were really active at that time. You know, I remember I bumped into you, you know, around then, and I can see a distinct difference in terms of maturity in there. Like you've lived 1,000 lives since then. You know, literally in some ways. Literally. How come you decided to move away from doing the online content in the way that you were doing it before?
Again, another good question, man. I think I dedicated, even before we started Rajoana TV, I was active for a good 10 years, man, but behind cameras. So I was doing lots of writing for newspapers, for Dharmic albums, doing the translations for the Dharmic Geet and things like that. So I was, you know, in that field, that seva field, for a good number of years. And, you know, even the Rajoana TV, I think it went on for a good 10, 15 years. I think I got to a point where when I was discharged out of hospital, I was hoping that there'd be somebody who would have taken the reins. I was hoping there'd be somebody, especially because at that time, the Kisan movement was happening. And I was hoping Nojwan Utuga, he'd grab a mic and it'd be really easy listening. He'd have that charisma, Bebe Karku, and he'd go, yeah, man. Or some, you know, BB, whoever it was. But when I came out, I was getting lots of text messages saying, Baji, we missed your voice. We need you back on stage. And as heartening as it was to read those messages, man, I was like, if anything, it broke my heart because I was...
Were you burnt out?
I was kind of burnt out, but I also thought, like, there should have been, like, 10 of me, like, 15, 20 of me, like, who, you know, in different areas. Like, you shouldn't be able to name on or count on both hands the main pracharaks up and down the country, but you can. But there's other communities out there, they couldn't even count them in one tiny area because there's so many of them active. And I think I was a bit disheartened, a bit burnt out. And my kids were tiny. And I think people don't realize around here, or they probably do actually, because of the line. You know, I faced my fair share of threats, man. Imagine 10, 15 years of sticking your head above the parapet, saying those things that people have been scared to say, raising the banner for the people who have been vilified, raising the banner for the people who have been made to look like the villains of history, and saying, no, they're not the villains. These were the real villains. This is the backstory. And the level of threat that came with, and I took it on the chin, but I think having young kids, feeling burnt out, not seeing things progress so much in terms of prachar, made me think that, look, it's, you know, when you feel for the panth from here, often it affects you there as well. And I just thought, for my own sake, I had to take a bit of a back step.
I think it's quite understandable as well, you know what I mean? And in some ways, when you look back, some of the arguments that you think were valid may not be, and then you just think, you know, you see things through different lenses as technology. There's a lot of things come out to more and more, and you're like, it's not worth the risk.
Yeah, it's not worth it. Absolutely.
And I don't think there's any shame in saying that. You know, at the end of it, to me, I think that's more credible when you can actually say, I've changed my mind on some stuff. Because I don't think we're allowed nowadays to have a platform to say, I've changed my mind.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, they'll be like, no, hang on. In 1994, you said
this,
and you've got to stick with that for the rest of your life. And I think there comes a point where you actually say, well, I've done my bit in a selfish way. To do it.
Yeah, and there's people out there. You know, you mentioned like when we live in an area, you not change your mind. There's a guy, I think his name's Peter Atita or something, and he's I think he's a nutritionist or something. But he was following a keto diet for ages. Then he decided, you know what, I've changed my mind. My body's responding to carbs, so he started eating carbs. He was lambasted by the keto community. Like, how dare you eat that sweet potato? And I was like, oh my God, you know about to change your mind. This guy's not even allowed to eat a sweet potato because he's now jumped from one camp to another. So like, it is hard. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination. I'm still the same person.
Yeah.
And in some senses, Ranj, the horse is bolted. Like, I've done what I've done, and people know who I am or whatever, what I stand for, and I still do. You know what I mean? I still stand for them things, and I will to my dying day. But yeah, there's certain things I've changed, certain things I've had to change, and that's life, man.
So everyone out there, including myself, didn't see you anywhere until I think it was about November 2020, where I think there was a Facebook post going around saying that you were really gravely ill, and to basically get the community to kind of pray for your health. What happened at that time? I think that would be the best way for you to kind of explain it, rather than, because there's a headline out of there saying you were dead for 45 minutes. And then I need you to kind of explain from that point, from that Facebook post, what was there, to that, to then after.
So those posts, I think, went viral, and for people to look at them and go, he's gravely ill, but I think ill is that's a real understatement.
I'm trying to just
like
make you feel better. You just had a headache.
तू थोड़ा जिहा ढिल्ला सीगा. I was saying नहीं मैं ढिल्ला नहीं सी, मैं थोड़ा जिहा मरिया सीगा. So I think it was November 26, 2020. The only thing I can remember prior to that, because I think your brain blocks out certain levels of trauma.
So it was during COVID.
During COVID, it was the peak of COVID. And the only thing I remember is that I think it was the 25th of November, I got a text message, and it said Maradona's passed away.
Yeah.
And I looked at it, oh my God, and I thought, साडा दा hero सेगा Maradona, you know. He was like the Amitabh Bachchan of football, and I was like, oh my God, ये कितना हो गया? And I must have sent that message to everyone. Well, I went to bed, but little did I know that only 7 hours later, wherever Maradona was, I was going to go the same way. So my wife tells me this now, because I don't remember this. And she says it was about 7:30. And this is when the Al-America was 4 salan di, and Kalyan was only 1. But she was a difficult sleeper, Kalyan was. So I was always conscious that, always creep around. Like, I even showered in the evening instead of the morning because I didn't want to wake them up if they were asleep. So I woke up in the morning, and this bit I can't remember. This is everything my wife tells me, this bit. But I'm always reluctant to believe anything she says.
Did you still get into trouble though? Did you do the washing? Did you put the washing machine on?
She would just get, you didn't make your bed before you went to the hospital. The usual. But by the way, dying and coming back to life, that does not get rid of any nagging. So no one's got.
They get you there.
Ultimately, So so I woke up with extreme chest pains, and my wife says that you were just clutching your chest. You woke me up, and you said, "Look, I don't know what a heart attack feels like, but I think I'm having one." So, she took the covers off, ran, phoned the ambulance. They came, they hooked me up to an ECG, and they went, "Yeah, your man's having a major heart attack." They then put me into an ambulance, and on the way to City Hospital, literally, I think 5 minutes from home, I had my first cardiac arrest. So the body literally just stopped. My heart decided, but this is it for you now. And then God bless those paramedics, man, because they kept trying, man. 12 shocks of a defibrillator, like bang, clear, 12 times. They resuscitated my heart. Then I had a second cardiac arrest moments later. Stick the defibrillator back on me. I don't even know how many they did on the second time. I remember, I think the paramedics did say it was the first time in their career they've seen somebody talk in between cardiac arrests. And I said, "Mera ta kam hi bolna hai," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So nothing's going to stop this man, not even Martha, man.
So you can't remember none of
I
that?
don't remember any, and I'm so glad I don't.
Yeah.
And then I had a third cardiac arrest. So the body stopped again. Multiple shocks of a
In the ambulance still?
This was in the car park of City Hospital, the third one.
Yeah.
As they're going to take me into the resuscitation room, I have a fourth cardiac arrest. The body stops again, dies again. They take me into the resuscitation room. I think, from what I know, there's about 15 professionals in that room. Senior, nurse, doctor, jo marji. They took it in turns to try and keep me going, like try and CPR, compress my chest. On the 45th minute, now, I didn't know this information, Ranj, until 8 months after being discharged. Even my family were asking, and even wider Sangat, man, there was parts, jobs everywhere. Canada to leke, America tak, in Punjab to leke, like people were praying, man. People were asking, man, how long was he out for? Even my family was asking, like, how many shocks of a defibrillator did you give him? And they kept saying, we're not going to give you that information because all it's going to do is mess with your head. It serves no other purpose than that. So I found this information at 8 months later, man. So after 45 minutes, imagine watching your favorite Netflix show or series. You go make yourself a cup of tea, something to eat. I'm still dead at that point for that entire period, 45 minutes.
They're still working on you.
They're still here.
And you're flatlined. Yeah?
I'm dead. They're still working. So after 45 minutes, that dreaded question's asked in the resuscitation room, are we happy we've tried everything? At the point they're about to pronounce me dead and say the time, there was a little Indian doctor in there called Dr. Arijit Ghosh. He read about a technique before I came in, just I think a few weeks before I came in, a colleague of his said to him, have you heard of double external sequential defibrillation? He's like, no, what's that? And he said, it's using 2 defibrillators at once. It's never done in the UK or Europe, or rarely done in Europe. So they put 2 pads on your chest, 1 on your stomach, 1 on your back. Oh, that sounds interesting. He went home and researched it, and he read a journal about a guy in Canada where they used it, but he died 20 odd minutes later anyway because there's so much voltage that you end up killing someone anyway. I think probably why they don't use it. At the point they're about to pronounce me dead, Arijit Ghosh, he himself, when he was interviewed by the BBC, he himself said, I have no clue what I was doing in that resuscitation room. He said, I'm not part of that team, that resuscitation team. I'm not part of that part of the hospital. I'm not normally at that hospital. I'm not normally on that shift. Imagine this guy was self-isolating anyway because there's a height of COVID. He suffers from diabetes and hypertension. But because he's a locum doctor, he's normally based in Coventry. He was like, I'm running out of money. I get myself back into circulation. A few months later, he reads about this. A few weeks after that, I come in. And all he could hear the doctor say was, 39 years old, 2 daughters, wife's pregnant, And he said, I was just listening. I wasn't taking part, I was just listening. He goes, at the point they're about to pronounce you dead, I said, let's try double external sequence. Don't pronounce him dead, let's try this. And they went, not in this country, mate. There's no guidance for it in the UK. And he's like, but he's dead already. Like, what damage can I do? And they said, look, you could frazzle his body beyond recognition. They could sue us for using something that's not part of guidelines. He said, I'll take a risk on both.
So he's there taking a risk on
his career as well.
Essentially on a dead body.
On a dead body. He's taking a risk on a dead body, but also his career.
Yeah. And his family and everything else, yeah.
And imagine this, Ranj. Imagine he's a locum doctor. He's surrounded by seniors and registrars and cardiologists, you name it. And he's going, name it, karna hi hai. So in that high pressure situation, he's risked it all. And they said, if you're hell-bent on doing this, we don't want any part of it. I've got nothing against them because they all tried for 45 minutes, man. So he's run without an assistant. He's grabbed a second defibrillator. He's put 2 pads on my chest, one on my
So
stomach.
are they still working on you at this point?
No, at this point they're backed away.
So how long is it from the point when they've stopped working on you to him getting this stuff?
Only he knows that, man. Only he knows that. That point, from that point where I don't know where the second defibrillator was for him to run and get it. I haven't even talked to him about that, man.
Yeah.
So he's gone to get the second defibrillator. He's put 2 pads on my chest, one on my stomach, one on my back. So basically, if you had a power outage on 26 November, that was my fault, man. I could have powered Chandigarh, honestly. So that resuscitated my heart.
So I'm just trying to work this out. Because obviously in my head it's that. So how did has he got to get another colleague to do it at the same time, or does he just press it and say, "Oh, you don't know"?
I don't know. All I know is put 2 pads there, one here, one here, in 1 second intervals.
Yeah. So he's gone bang and then bang.
In 1 second intervals, I think. In 1 second, yeah. So he's done that because he said, I knew I could take that blockage out of your artery and put a stent in. And he said, but I needed at least a blood pressure and heart rate to do it. He said, yours was 0 for almost an unprecedented 45 minutes. And if you imagine, Ranj, even the people who are listening, you often hear people becoming brain damaged.
Lack of oxygen.
Within seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have no oxygen into your brain for even 10, 12 seconds. There's people who have irreversible brain damage. I was 45 minutes. You know when they say in that situation, every second is the equivalent of 1 minute. And if you think of mine was in absolute minutes, and if you total what had happened before that, we're probably closing in on an hour of just being dead.
Yeah.
So he's put 2 defibrillators on me. It's what my body needed at the time. It resuscitated my heart. They took me into a cath lab.
So what has he said? What the reaction was to when that happened?
Not really. We haven't really discussed that, and I think he was reluctant to talk about it. I think he went into a bout of depression afterwards.
Wow.
Because you know, like that doctor who saved Mo Amber on the pitch.
Yeah.
All that world famous ho gaya siga. He believes that because he was a locum doctor, he was an Indian doctor from Calcutta. He reckons if he wasn't that, he'd be on Sky News.
Yeah.
He didn't even make the hospital newsletter. Nobody even told me what he did for me. He used to come up by my bedside in intensive care whenever he was on shift just to check pe hale jinda hai. But nobody told me ek hai kaun. Ye nahi tenu bachaya.
So how did you find out then?
So he rings me. So if I'll get back to that.
Yeah.
So he does that. They take me to the cath lab where they want to take the blockage out for the stent in my artery. But they were like, his heart's going to stop any second now, because not only has he had like 4 cardiac arrests, he's had a major heart attack. He's been dead 45 minutes. He's had multiple shocks of 1 defibrillator. Then he's had 2 at once. Now he's going into surgery. But in that the heart carried on beating. But because of all that trauma, it caused a chest infection, pneumonia, kidney failure, liver failure, multi-organ failure again, and multiple strokes. So they looked at me and they went, this guy's absolute toast. But any made is bandarte, you know what I mean? We can't call it quits here. So they induced me into a coma, and they said, let's put him in a coma, let his body try and fight this, and let's see what happens. Within, I think, 3 or 4 days, my wife got that horrific phone call. And they said, look, there's not really a human being that can withstand this level of trauma. It's like he's been attacked by a gang of 100 blokes, armed to the teeth, but on the inside of his body. There's no coming back from this. It's time to say goodbye. So you know that picture that was shown on the international media with all those pipes coming out?
Yeah.
That was meant to be the last picture ever taken of me. I was more horrified because my double chin and Didi. So they had, and she said, look, he's the most stubborn guy that you'll meet. Give him time. I think when my daughter spoke to me via an iPad, and she's a proper daddy's girl, they said that's when I started moving my wrist, my thorn, and they went, look, he's showing signs of life, but we need to check what his brain's like, because the big muscle out here, that's had no oxygen for 45 minutes. Jadoo ne mera brain scan kita, the neurologist rang my wife and said, look, if by some miracle this banda wakes up, he's going to be in a vegetative state for the rest of his life. He won't walk, he won't talk, but thode samne hoga if he wakes up. there's black spots everywhere on his scan, and it's a really bad case of brain
What
damage.
does black spots mean? Like
Just there's no
function.
There was just no function, no
Not
no
active.
activity, nothing. They went, the chair that you're sat on's probably got more life than your husband at this point. So again, they said you've got a difficult decision to make. Do you want him back like that? Would he want his kids to see him like that? But more importantly, would he want to be back like that? So obviously, in other पैरां थले तो जमीन निकल गई तो आप बनी की ਜਾਂਦਾ. That's when all these posts were. They weren't like descriptive brain damage. They were just like, please pray for him.
Yeah.
Just ardasa karo, you know. And then they did a second scan. It revealed the same. And there was I think in a number of Guru Kards, maybe there was like parts happening, and there was a Sage part happening. And on the day of the Pog of this Sage part, I think the neurologist rang my family and they said, look, we've got no scientific justification for what's just happened, but this third scan is revealing that his brain's completely regenerated. It's brand new. We just need him to wake up. And so almost 3.5 weeks later, I wake up. And for someone, jera banda bahar chakda, jera healthy banda, all of a sudden I wake up and you can see this tracheostomy mark here. But I was lifeless. I couldn't move. I couldn't even speak. And genuinely, Ranjit, I thought that Sarkar ne mainu phar liya. But this is what's going to happen. They're experimenting on me. This is my end. And I was thinking to myself, if I'm unwell, where's my family? And all I was surrounded by people with double masks and these hazmat type suits. And I was like, damn, what an ending. Like,
so you thought you were an experiment?
I thought I was being, because if you imagine the worst nightmare and you've ever had.
Yeah.
You know the type of nightmare where you wake up and it's still with you for a few hours?
Yeah.
If you amplify that by 1 million and have it relentless for almost 4 weeks, that's what I had. So when I woke from that, that's why the counseling they give to people who come out of intensive.
Is that your first memory? Is that that you legitly remember from after being told from your wife?
100%.
Like waking up and seeing that?
Waking up and seeing that.
And then what was their reaction to you? Because they must have been like, hang on, everything that we've learned in school, everything we've been told, scientific, all the scans, and this guy's defying it. Like,
it was pretty much defied
I'd be
it all.
shitting it. I wouldn't be going anywhere near.
Yeah. I think they must have thought I'm some kind of bionic man. But there was a lady in there who kind of recognized me from, I think she used to watch the videos and stuff, and she must have said to them, look, this is somebody in our community who stands for us, man. Like, but yeah, I think they were all. That's why they just call me the Miracle Man. Like, if you said, how's the Miracle Man doing? There were doctors who'd come in checking and go, how's that Miracle Man doing? What the hell? So then when I woke up, they slowly drip fed me the information, and they went, Sarb, you're lucky to be alive. And then Rand, you must have seen the other picture where I'm surrounded. I'm awake. I'm smiling. I'm kind of trying to do a thumbs up because it's my mom's birthday on that day. But they said, look, this is as good as it's going to get. I was paralyzed. They didn't know if I was going to walk again. And the prognosis for me, man, it was like 2 years. Man, 2 years you might start eating properly. And I was like, Khalistani nishatini marda. Honestly, because I thought to myself, Ranji, in my previous thing that I've done, I've helped lots of disaffected youths in colleges. I've got like knife crime, gang culture, grooming, county lines, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. So I used to say to my students, like the mind can propel the body to accomplish unimaginable things. And when I was told, babe, this is as good as it's going to get, I thought, not for me, man. I've got kids to get to. Every time doctors would come and do their obs and my kidneys had failed, they said, you're going to be in dialysis, your kidneys are, I don't know, 10% or don't know if your legs are going to work again. Honestly, I had this. I don't know if it helped that nobody could come and see me because it was a height of COVID. So I had this dogged mentality. I was going, Doc, when am I going home, Sarb? You ain't going home anytime soon. I remember saying to my wife, I'm going to be home 31st December 2020 and I will see the new year at home. And honestly, they thought, oh, he's still brain damaged. He thinks he's going to come home. Bro, I kid you not. I went from a place where I could bench press 100, but I was in a place where I couldn't drink water until a nurse opened the cap for me. There's nothing in me, absolutely nothing. So I had to dig so deep, like in ways and places that.
So was that like little tasks that you'd set yourself?
Yeah, myself, like I'll be like, right, so even a bottle, I'd be like, rather than beat myself up and go, too hacky, si too banky again. I'll be like, don't worry, man, let's go again tomorrow. Almost, at least you got a squeeze. I'll be like trying to get up, And if I would just about lifted my hamstrings off, I would like, yeah, progress, man, let's go again tomorrow. That's how I talk to myself. Because I said to myself, like, I wouldn't, if somebody was laying there paralyzed and they're trying to get back on their feet, would I go, oh my God, you pussy, man, look what you were, man, No, I'd be like, come on, man, bro, you can do this. So why don't I talk to myself like that? So that's what I had to do. I became my own coach, man. And then again, being saved in that way was just miraculous. Defying all those medical odds was miraculous. But then getting home within 11 days, there's people who've got COVID and still got long COVID. I died for 45 minutes and I was back home in 11 days.
Did they know what caused the heart attack?
It was a combination, yeah. So I think, like COVID causes blood clots.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it was. COVID caused a blood clot. I've got to take a bit of ownership as well. I don't think my lifestyle, if I was living the way I am now, COVID ne minu hath nahi launa. But I had unhealthy eating, and especially in that time, you had to be really mindful about what you were eating, because the slightest infection.
But how does it affect you now? Is it always still in the back of your mind, like
It was for a while, man. Ranj, it was for a while, because more than anything, it was like kids, like, bro, like for 45 minutes, my kids didn't have a dad, and that I struggled to deal with that. And like you said, coming back to when you said, how did I find out? I've come home, I've been discharged, I've turned 40 a few weeks later. I'm going back to work after 3 or 4 months. I'm trying to get back to normal. And then a doctor rings me out of nowhere. I'm at work. He doesn't even say, yo, you might want to get comfortable. He just says, is this Sarb Singh? And I said, yeah. With the tact of a rhino. Yeah. I'm the doctor who saved your life. I said, oh. He said, you were dead for 45 minutes. And I swear to God, I was just sitting there with my colleague and I'm like, what? And then he told me the whole story about how he saved me using a technique that's never been used. But do Mariasi for 45 minutes, and I just went, oh.
But he started to get into trouble, didn't he, because of that technique, because it wasn't following the correct guidance?
Yeah, I think, if anything, he went on a bit of an international tour talking about that technique. And from what I gather, like when he rang me, the reason he rang me, he was just like, look, he goes, Sarb, can I come and see you? Number one, I just want to see you. Yeah. Secondly, I want you to sign a piece of paper so I can put your case forward to the National Resuscitation Council, so we can turn your case into a journal and put it to them that we need to change the guidelines going forward. I said, you need a signature of me? He goes, yeah. I said, tu meri latta baha mangla, main la ke de dun tenu. I owe you absolutely everything, man. So for me to dekhana hai, man, the first thing I could do is just touch his feet, man. I said, bro. So I think it will be adopted by the National Resuscitation Council. If it is, we're looking at potentially hundreds of millions, if not billions of lives going forward in the future, saved. Because where one defibrillator didn't work, he's found that a second one does. Yeah. So if it is adopted.
Wow. It's so, I don't think there's any kind of follow-up questions that do it justice, because it's very emotive, because one as a father, another one as a husband, then as a son, brother, whatever, do you know what I mean? There's so many different dynamics of where this come through, but the power of prayer in one way. Like, I'm just going to go into Diyal as well at the same point, because you go through that, you get to that miracle, and your daughter at the age of 4 is got an IQ of 145 and gets into Mensa. And I'm like going, what's the odds?
Why
when you work about it, the odds, it's like the different lives that have come in for you to get to. And then, do you know what I mean? It's almost like if you were going to make this into a film,
absolutely,
it's bullshit.
Man.
You're just like going, even Mission Impossible ain't going to come out with this.
100%. A few people have said,
and your youngest as well now.
Yeah, over your thing, and the middle one, like, So with the youngest, they say, look, Diyal was the youngest member of Mensa in Europe. Shoti ta laudu tava sare da duniya de. They're just tufans.
So what does that mean? So like, what I mean is, like, do you get, like, is it like they get headhunted into particular different schools,
you know what it is?
These things?
With Mensa, what it is, it's like they don't actually do anything. It's a high IQ society. What it does do is it just solidifies the fact that I always used to say to people, look, you know, even to her nursery, she's different. She needs to be challenged in different ways. And they were like, yeah. I remember we got a letter when she was a year and a half from her nursery, and they were saying, look, in 20 years of childcare, we haven't seen a child like this. So I knew there was something there. What Mensa does, it just solidifies, and it's like a stamp that she is operating on a different level. Yeah. I think what also came on the back of it when she hit the international press at the Times and all the other international press is that you know, a private school saw that and went, listen, we want Dayal here. Yeah. So that, you know, that in itself. But even there, it's just she learns at such a frightening pace, bro, that it's even there can't keep up.
But what impact did your experience have on the kids? Do you think that had an effect on it?
So she took her test. She took the Mensa test a month before this incident happened.
Okay, so...
But she hit the press a month after I came out.
So you're like, hang on, forget her, listen to me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It feels like we are living in our own Netflix series. So even a few people have said, even the BBC guys, they were supposed to come and interview me for 15 minutes. They came to our house, the health correspondent, Michelle Padwani, and the cameraman. They ended up staying for about 3 days, man. Because they were like, this family is nuts. and they didn't even know about the Rajoana, my life as a Rajoana TV before that. They were like, there's something about you, dude, man. I don't know what it is. There's something. I know you died and came back. But and I didn't even talk about it. Then they looked at Dayal and they were like, oh my God, Evie, she's a Mensa, like...
I know I'm just cutting you in there, and I apologize.
No.
Like, I got something. You know, like, was there anything, like you did anything in the afterlife or anything like that you remember?
A few people have asked me that. Whatever lies beyond this life, I was there. What it is, I don't know. Maybe it hit me at a different time. Yeah. But I just think it's a bit like, say, I don't know, like alcohol, daru, whatever, an intoxicant. You know, if you got a shugli banda and he has a top, he turns a bit more shugli. If you got a violent guy, he has a bit of nasha, he turns a bit more violent. It amplifies often someone's personality, doesn't it? I think, you know, near-death experiences and death experiences, whatever's in your mind, whatever's deeply ingrained in your conscious and your subconscious, that's what you'll see, I think.
Okay. So
there were things that I saw, there were things that I didn't see. I don't know what was real, what wasn't, and what was a hallucination, but whatever's out there was there. Maybe I should start my own data and say, look, main sara kuch dekhya.
But technically you haven't, because you got Sarb Speaks, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, like, what's that? Is that just you just going through this experience and taking lessons and being like a motivator? And
it's pretty much that, man. Because so when I came out, my story is so nuts. Like, honestly, even though I can't catch my breath with it, that I found myself sharing it with people, and it was just helping so many people. Like, so I did quite a few like voluntary things, and I think, you know, Ranj, when you get my, say, Rajoana TV delivery, that really hit people's heart. People find it so easy to listen to, and they're connected with it because stage to na bolna oh kise da kam. When you combine that with a truly death-defying, medical odds-defying, human odds-defying story, but then you're an expert in well-being, it's too much to keep to yourself. Yeah. So I thought, I was doing this stuff, and then people would ask me, can you do a talk here? Can you do a talk here? And I thought, you know what, maybe this is my calling. Yeah. Maybe my calling is I start my own organization, Sarb Speaks, and I will go into, I'm doing some corporate stuff where I'm teaching CEOs and workers, how do you deal with setbacks? How do you cultivate your resilience? So, you know, when people hear my story, you know, my nut story, that's just a little backdrop. What I really is, what did I glean from that? How can I transfer that absolute lohag? Because I could have, in that ugg, and it was ugg, Ranj, it was absolute ugg. In that ugg, I could either have melted or forged an iron will. I could honestly, you know, when I was discharged, I was this close to switching everything off, man. Flicking the mental switch off, man. Because that level of trauma is too much to deal with. Yeah. So I had to dig deep again. When I found out how I was saved, that I was dead for 45, that messed with my mind even more.
Let alone the family dynamics.
The family dynamics, what my wife, and she was pregnant at the time, and my kids were tiny, and you know, what effect did that have? You know, their daddy's girls, man, I was never away from them more than 24 hours. They hadn't seen me for 6 weeks. And then when they do see me,
It's completely different,
yeah, he's in a wheelchair, na torda, na bolda, na. And I still don't know what effect that had on them. So, you know, I was just like, you know, I had some dark times and thoughts, man. You know, people think that they go through depression, and sometimes nothing may have happened, but it's just maybe there's wiring or there's certain things happening, bro. You know, whatever the worst could happen to a human being, that happened, and I was just like, I don't know if I could deal with this, man. And then obviously my younger brother, my chacha's munda, he became a victim of suicide a few months after I was discharged. Then my daughter was born. They all came into Mensa, and it was just like I couldn't catch my breath with anything. So yeah, again I had to just dig deep, man. And I remember I was in a supermarket. You know, this is when I thought I might not make it. My wife said to me, "Chala pa chal de, let's go to Asda, try and feel a bit normal, man. Let's go to a supermarket, let's do shopping." We went to the checkout, and as the shopping's going, it's going deet, deet. In my mind, all I could was deet, deet, and I could hear flatlining, man. And I just left the supermarket, and I was just, oh my God. And I thought to myself, yaar, tu pahad aar ga siga. You know, anything happening, you know, Sarb no poch. And I was always there for people, man. Brick wall for everyone for God knows how many years. But then I thought, this brick wall is shattered beyond recognition because you can't even stand the voice of a scanner. So I was very close to the edge then. But then again, the techniques I used to get myself back on my feet, I think they're so transferable that it's like a superhuman protocol. I'm now, Ranj, I would say, I'm 43, physically and mentally, I'm in the best shape I have ever been.
Yeah, you look great. Honestly, when I first saw it, I was like, you know, I've had to wear a baggy koti today because someone called me fat in the last one. You know, I look at you coming in, being at death's door, you've gone to wherever, you're still better than me. What does that say about me?
No, we're all, bro.
You know what I mean?
No. You know what it is? It's just, I think, I wouldn't recommend anybody tries to die to appreciate life like I did. It's a risky game. But you know when you've come from me, where I am, baggy hoodie. Now where I've come from, I appreciate, you know, when my kids are doing ulti all over the show because they've all got an infection and they've passed it on to each other, and most parents are like, oh, I'm like, I'm alive to see this, man.
Okay, so you're appreciating
everything.
Because I normally ask a question at the end of every podcast, which is, you know, is there a bandwagon that you want to jump on or jump off? And if there's something to get off your chest, then you can do. I don't think I can ask you that question.
Yeah, bro.
Because like you'll appreciate everything.
Everything,
the
bro.
bandwagons.
Even with the bandwagon. Bandwagon I'll appreciate that, man. You know what I mean? Any bandwagon, anything, bro. Like everything is just heightened. Even this moment now with you is heightened.
So I'm going to ask you the last question on this. Is like, what do you see the next sort of 12 months looking like for you, especially with this Sarb Speaks? Because I can't recommend it highly enough. You know, like I've been speaking to you for how long, and then it's just infectious the way that you describe it and wanting more. And there's nothing that even in this conversation is going to do it justification. And do you know what I
appreciate that, my brother.
But like, what does the future look like for you?
I think the future looks like. I think with in regards to Sarb Speaks, the last thing I did was I was invited to be the headline speaker at the Mayor's Ball a few weeks ago in Solihull. And she didn't know me. The first thing she said to me, especially people like that, man. They account for everything. So when she shook my hand, the mayor did, she went, "You'll keep it under so many minutes, won't you?" And I thought, I says, "Madam Mayor, you're going to regret saying that." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because you're going to say, she goes, "No, but please stick to your time." And honestly, I went double the time. The first person to stand up and give me a standing ovation was her and the consort, her husband. So I can see this. It's hitting hard. It's hitting home. There are many motivational and inspirational speakers out there, and they're all doing their thing. But then it's a different ballgame. And so I haven't even started properly. I've got.
You gotta start your own podcast.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. But yeah, so yeah, again, that's something people have mentioned. But I was keen on doing yours. I remember podcast karna, and I remember, man, I was very touched, man. You know, when we met, I don't know how many years ago, and you went, You said, look, I listen to your stuff on the way to work, and that's when it hit me, man. I thought, oh yeah, you know, bande of this caliber are listening
Nah.
to my stuff on their way to work. You know what I mean? It's hitting home somewhere. But what I've seen in 12 months is I haven't really. I'm still in like second gear, and we've got like 21 like 5-star Google reviews, really detailed ones from CEOs, from coaches, to authors. So you know, I can see this changing many lives, man. Many lives. One word, one line, one speech at a time. Yeah, and you know, it's something that will change lives. It's changed mine. It gives me that freedom because you know when you've died and come back to life, you don't really want to go to a line manager and say, "Can I have some time off because I want to pick up my kid?" Those things mean so they're just so small now. I'm just thinking, I didn't come back to life to ask someone's permission for things. You know, मैं खुद मुख्तियारी करनी है. I want to call my own shots. You know what I mean? And this will allow me to do that as well, while also, you know, giving people a story that they can relate to, but also the tools that will allow them, bro, 100% to empower their lives. Because when they meet me, they go, "Je mar ke bhi aa sakda," like, and
what can I achieve?
What can I achieve if I'm just struggling with life itself?
SarbSpeaks.com.
That's the one, my
Thank
brother.
you,
Thank you,
respect.
man. No, respect, man.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, and keep out for the next episode. Appreciate it.